Well, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Reserve Bank for what is a very significant milestone in the wider evolution of New Zealand's currency. Let me convey an apology at this point from the Minister of Finance. The Minister is involved in a luncheon being provided by the Governor-General for the President of China, and unfortunately the President of China's flight was delayed, as I understand it, and the lunch is taking a little longer. So I'm not sure if the Minister will get here in time, but in any event, we'll carry on with the arrangements. Very much like to welcome the Chairman of the Reserve Bank Board, Dr. Rod Carr, and many of the Board Directors who are meeting here in Wellington. We have 9 board meetings a year, and so it's a great pleasure to have the board here for this launch of the banknotes. We're also particularly grateful to have the President and Chief Executive of the Canadian Banknote Company, Ron Arends, and Senior Vice President of Payments and Manufacturing, Mary Lou Robinson, here with us today to mark the launch of the banknotes. The Canadian Banknote Company has done a terrific job in terms of the design and printing of the banknotes, and may interest you to know that they also print the passports for New Zealand, as well as the currency for Canada. Today we're unveiling New Zealand's brighter money, banknotes that are not only brighter and more modern, but which incorporate much more advanced security features. And in a short while, Jeff Baskand, who's our Deputy Governor, will provide a behind-the-scenes look at the project. This has been a major project for the bank. It's involved a huge amount of work, and Jeff will outline what work remains to be done before the notes enter circulation late next year. So with great pleasure and with an apology from the Minister of Finance, let me unveil the banknotes. Jeff.
Thank you, Graham. Aren't they great? Seeing people's initial reactions to the new banknote designs is a heartening reminder of what an important role currency plays in our lives, and what a sense of pride and heritage our notes evoke. 3 years ago, when we launched the project to upgrade New Zealand's banknotes, we decided to retain the well-known New Zealanders, flora and fauna on our notes. Our research showed that New Zealanders were satisfied with the themes of the existing notes and the denominations available. Looking at the designs in print, we're very proud of the way New Zealand's rich cultural diversity, world-class achievements and unique heritage have been brought to life as part of the new designs. From our world-famous mountaineer and explorer Sir Edmund Hillary, through to our Nobel Prize-winning scientist Lord Rutherford, the stories that we've celebrated as New Zealanders will continue to live on through future generations. Some new ones may even emerge as the sharper and more colourful pictures on the notes bring flora, fauna, landscapes and history alive. Our brighter money doesn't just celebrate innovation and the pioneering New Zealand spirit through the images depicted on the notes. The notes themselves are at the forefront of banknote technology. It's been 15 years since the current banknotes were last upgraded, and printing and design techniques have advanced significantly. In 1999, New Zealand was one of the few countries to be printing banknotes on polymer. Now it's increasingly common, as central banks around the world work to produce durable, secure currency. Security features have also advanced considerably in the last 15 years, and our new notes contain more sophisticated security elements that greatly enhance the overall design. The transparent windows are larger, and striking holographic features will help to make the notes very easy to verify and hard to counterfeit. More details about these features will be made available closer to the time the notes are released. Consequently, the actual banknotes will look slightly different to the ones you see here today. New Zealand's very fortunate in that we have low rates of counterfeiting by international standards. But since 1999, there have been significant advances in copying, scanning, and printing technologies, and the cost of this technology has dramatically reduced. As a result, the economics of counterfeiting have changed substantially, and the risk of counterfeiting has increased. So we need to stay ahead of the game, as a counterfeit attack could be very costly and erode the high levels of trust New Zealanders have in their currency. As Graham mentioned, and we previously announced, after a multi-stage international tender, Canadian banknote company, CBN, was chosen to design and print our new banknotes. CBN has a very strong reputation for technologically advanced printing, has produced our our passports since 2009, and also prints the Bank of Canada's banknotes. And I'm very pleased that Ron Lorenz, President and CEO, and Mary Lou Robinson, Senior Vice President, are here with us today. I want to acknowledge them and their team, as well as my own team, who are behind this tremendous endeavour and the work that they've done. In recent months, we've had a team up at CBN's facility in Ottawa, making sure the designs you see are being translated accurately and smoothly into printed banknotes. It's a particularly detailed process requiring fastidious checking and cross-referencing of source material. Closer to home, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make these banknotes more user-friendly for people with visual impairments. Most importantly, the new notes will continue to be the same sizes as the current ones, meaning visually impaired people can continue to use the size to differentiate the denominations. In addition, the note value is shown in larger print, and there is much greater colour contrast between the notes. New Zealand's Maori culture is also better represented on our new notes. In particular, they incorporate more te reo Maori, notably Aotearoa, the Maori name for New Zealand, and Tiputia Matua, the Maori name for the Reserve Bank. As with the current notes, the names of the native birds on the reverse of the notes continue to be written in Maori. Tuku panels also feature more prominently, weaving important cultural and symbolic meaning into the banknote designs. Designing, developing, printing and rolling out new banknotes involves many partnerships and moving parts. We've been working with the New Zealand Police to ensure the notes are counterfeit resilient, and a panel of experts from Te Papa to ensure that the notes designs are culturally and scientifically accurate. On a personal note, I've observed firsthand the importance of design accuracy. Despite having a father as a botanist and a mother as an artist and printmaker, and growing up surrounded by drawings of ferns, I've been amazed at just how scientifically accurate the drawing of the silver fern needs to be before my team will let it anywhere near the banknote. As well as the contracts for design and print with CBN, we've signed 7 other contracts or supply agreements with 6 other vendors or component suppliers. And to give you an idea of the scale of this changeover exercise, more than 40,000 pieces of cash handling equipment will need to be calibrated for the new notes. We've been consulting with industry on the calibration and testing program, and we're confident the industry will be ready to handle the new notes later next year. I've talked about the notes. Let me now just speak for a few minutes about their release. We're targeting October 2015 for the release of the $5 and $10 notes, followed by the $20, $50 and $100 notes in April 2016. Issuing the new notes and collecting up the old notes is a major logistical exercise for the Reserve Bank. Our note circulation and distribution strategy has been designed in consultation with industry, and it represents a business as usual approach, which should minimise the additional costs of introducing new banknotes. What this means is that the Reserve Bank will issue new banknotes as banks demand them, and we will take back old, surplus or worn banknotes as the banks return them to us. Some of these old series notes will be held in reserve in case we ever need to call on them, but most will be shredded and recycled. It may take 12 to 18 months for the new notes to be widely in circulation, and both sets of notes will remain legal tender so people can continue to use them with confidence. Of the approximately 148 million notes in circulation, we receive, process and reissue over 140 million banknotes each year. We expect it will cost around an extra $7 to $8 million per annum for the next 5 years to issue and distribute the new notes and replace our reserve stocks. In preparation for the changeover, we'll be running a public awareness campaign to ensure that New Zealanders can easily identify the new notes and use the new security features. Today, we've launched a brightermoney.co.nz website that contains basic information about the notes, the upgrade project and the images. We'll progressively update the site over time. Upgrading New Zealand's banknotes is a major project, and it's one we have to get right, especially as demand for cash continues to increase. Upgrading New Zealand's banknotes is about celebrating and honouring our country's unique heritage and culture. It also involves embracing modern and innovative technologies. We expect Brighter Money to be something all New Zealanders can be proud of and trust. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
What happens if the Queen dies before the money gets rolled out? Do you change the $20 note?
We would talk with Buckingham Palace about that situation if that does occur. We hope that she lives long and regally. That is obviously a risk that one's aware of.
Have you used an updated photo of her, or is that one from 1999?
It is updated. Yeah, some of the images are. All the images have been approved and verified as accurate and appropriate and so forth. So the image of the monarch has been accepted as an updated image.
Why was the designing outsourced to Canada instead of having it done locally?
Well, we ran a tender, as I said, an international tender, and we received many bids. But banknote printing is a specialist industry with very advanced technologies, and very pleased that the CBN tender was a successful one, and they proved the best of the tenders that we received.
You said when they actually are printed, they'll look different to that. Why will they look different? Why didn't you just show us how they'll look?
We're still completing some of the last details of the notes, including some of the final security features. They've still got to be validated and incorporated into the notes in the final printing form. So there's still some trial processes to do that. So the The variations we expect to be minor, but some of the parts that you can see in the window in particular will be different when you see them in the final form. The colours will be, apparent. As I said, there'll be some holographic and optically varying features in those in the windows.
Given that you say counterfeiting isn't actually that much of a problem in New Zealand and we're sort of moving towards a cashless society anyway, is $80 million worth it?
Well, we've got to be aware of the counterfeiting risks. When counterfeiting does occur, it's a serious issue. It costs a significant amount of money, resources to address it at the time. So you want to stay ahead of it. It's a bit like sort of not waiting until, your roof's sort of got terrible holes in it to do something with it. So you need to stay ahead of the game. And as I said, the cost on a per annum basis for the next 5 years is about $7 to $8 million a year additional. And cash is actually growing. Notwithstanding the sort of talk about a cashless society, we're still seeing increased demand every year for cash.
How do you think that is growing?
Why? It's an interesting question. We're seeing, obviously there's a part of New Zealand's place in the world, so more visitors to New Zealand, and so there's an international exposure. There's a use of it by different parts of society, still used, for small transactions extensively. But it's not just a New Zealand phenomenon. We're seeing it in a number of countries, many countries. Demand for cash continues to grow, notwithstanding the increased use of electronic payments.
And how big a problem? Oh, I'm sorry. You say counterfeiting is a small problem. Can you quantify that?
We do produce some figures on our identified counterfeiting rates. Yes, and compare ourselves with other countries, and yes, the numbers are very low for New Zealand compared with a number of other countries.
But are we talking thousands of notes a year or hundreds?
Well, we aim in our performance targets at less than 10 parts per million. So 10 notes out of every million, fewer than that should be counterfeit.
And do you achieve that?
And we are achieving that. It's underneath that target by a good deal.
Okay, out of 148 million in circulation.
Yeah, well, 10 out of a million would be, you can do the maths on that vis-a-vis the 148 million. Yeah.
In terms of the holographic image, can you say what that is, what it will be?
I think if you look at those images, you'll see there are a number of components in there. There's a map of New Zealand, an image of New Zealand, and a silver fern, and a bird.
Have you got any samples you can show us?
Any samples?
Yes.
We've got images for you to see, and digital images, and these images which have been printed from those images. No, we don't have individual notes for you to see at this point.
Have you, seen a mock-up example of it?
Oh, that's part of our process of quality assurance and satisfying ourselves that the notes are on track. Yes, we have. We have been reviewing the notes as they're coming off the different stages of the production process, looking at them, and very, very pleased that they're coming off in line with the design. But it's a dynamic process. There's an enormously sophisticated process of printing and making sure that what's in a digital image comes through the actual printing processes and inks and techniques applied to the polymer to look exactly like that as part of our job, part of CBN's job to satisfy ourselves that that's happening.
Is there going to be a cost in terms of changing ATM machines and things like that, making sure they can recognise them?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the start of that question.
Is there going to be a cost in terms of changing ATM machines to make sure they recognise the new notes, things like that?
It varies depending upon how modern that technology is, how capable it is of doing coping with the new and the old notes, the receiving and the issuing and so forth. But we're working very closely with the industry, the machine manufacturers, and their clients to make sure that they can, use the notes. So that's a period of time is set aside for that calibration and adjustment of those machines to the notes where required.
So you're not sure what the sort of cost would be?
No, I'm not. I don't have any estimate of the cost, but there would be some cost of time and activity for the industry.
You were originally planning to introduce new notes this year, weren't you? What was the cause of the delay?
I believe we indicated that it would be not before the end of 14. Or 14 at the earliest. So it was a sort of a range estimate. It's a process of, just working through many steps in the procurement process, the design, production, and working with vendors and suppliers. So I'm confident that it's working very well on a timely basis and to bring the notes in.
Where are the current notes printed and who does the job now?
The current notes are printed in Australia by Note Print Australia in Melbourne.
And have they had that contract since '99?
Yes, yeah.
Why did they lose it?
It was a tender process, so we selected CBN. Was
CBN cheaper?
Oh, look, I'm not going to go into the details of the evaluation process. Cost is a factor. A number of considerations were a factor. Just let me check a moment, James. Yeah, sorry, I was just checking whether it was known that NPA did not actually submit a bid.
Thank you. That explains it then.
It does. I just wasn't sure whether that was commercially confidential. I just needed to check on that. But no, they didn't submit a bid. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and attendance. I hope you like the notes. I think they're fantastic. Thank you very much to the Governor. Apologies on behalf of the Minister of Finance. Thank you very much.